I was sitting on the couch, flipping through channels, trying to find something to fill the lonely evening when the main door flew open, and my whole world flipped upside down. Camilla, my wife of over 2 decades, strode in like she owned the place. To be truthful, she always did. But this time, she wasn't alone. There was a guy with her, some slick-haired jerk with a sneer that made my stomach twist. He had this aura about him, like he'd already won something I didn't even know we were battling for. And then there was this little kid, maybe 5 years old, clinging to Camilla's hand, her wide eyes darting about the room like she wasn't sure where she'd landed. I stopped, my hand still poised over the remote, the TV humming softly in the background. Camilla didn't even glance at me at first. She simply marched in, threw her stuff on the counter, and turned to me with this harsh, hard stare I'd never seen before. "Sign these divorce papers and leave." "Now," she said, her voice flat, like she was ordering me to take out the trash. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even a fight. It was an order, like I was some hired help she was done with. I blinked, trying to process it, my heart hammering in my chest like it was attempting to break free and run. Divorce papers? Leave? Now? What the hell was happening? Next to me, Julian, my 16-year-old son, sat straight as a board on the couch. He'd been scrolling on his phone, maybe texting his friends or watching some silly video, but now his screen was dark. His hands gripped the phone like it was a lifeline. His jaw was tight, and I could definitely see the fire blazing in his eyes, even though he didn't say a thing. He's always been like that, quiet when he's upset, but you can feel it rolling off him in waves. I wanted to say something, anything, to break the silence, but my tongue felt heavy, stuck to the roof of my mouth. Camilla didn't wait for me to catch up. She reached into her purse, pulled out a stack of papers, and slapped them down on the coffee table in front of me. The sound resonated in the room, harsh and definitive. "This is done," she murmured, crossing her arms. "We're done." The guy, Trent she named him afterward, shifted behind her, looking arrogant like he was enjoying the spectacle. The small girl, Ava, just stood there, her tiny fingers clasped around Camilla's, staring at me like I was some stranger she'd never seen before. Maybe I was. I gazed at the documents, the black ink blurring a little as my eyes strained to focus. Divorce. She wasn't kidding. After 18 years, 2 houses, 1 kid, and a million tiny conflicts I thought we'd survived, she was standing there telling me to go. Pack up, get out. My house. Our house. The one I painted, fixed, lived in for years while she was off, discovering herself on her countless work trips. I felt my palms twist into fists, the remote burrowing into my hand. "Camilla?" I finally managed, my voice scratchy like I hadn't used it in days. "What is this? Who are these people?" She shrugged, her eyes cold, like I was the idiot for asking. "This is my life now?" she said, waving to Trent and Ava like they were trophies she'd won. "You've been sitting here doing nothing while I've been building something real. Sign the papers, pack your stuff, and go." Her words hit me like a punch, each one sinking further into my gut. "Nothing?" I raised Julian. I kept this house running. I waited for her, night after night, while she drifted further away. And now, she was rewriting the story, making me the loser who didn't matter. I glanced at Julian again, hoping he'd say something, anything to back me up. He didn't. He just stared at his mom, his eyes narrowing like he was weighing her up. I could see he was hurt. Hell, I was hurt. But he wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing it. Neither was I. Not yet. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, trying to keep my breathing steady. "You can't just walk in here and kick me out," I whispered, keeping my voice low, controlled. "This is my home, too." Camilla laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made the hairs on my neck stand up. "Your home? You've got no job, no money, no nothing. You're lucky I didn't do this sooner." She thought she had me pinned, helpless, ready to slink away with my tail between my legs. Trent smirked again, and I wanted to wipe that look off his face with my fist. But I didn't move. I just sat there, letting her words bounce around in my head, trying to figure out how the woman I loved for half my life had turned into this stranger standing in front of me. The young girl tugged on Camilla's hand, whispering something I couldn't hear. Camilla bent down, mumbled something back, and then straightened up, brushing her off like a nuisance. That's when I truly looked at Ava, her dark hair, her round face. She didn't look like Julian. She didn't look like me. But she had Camilla's nose, maybe her chin. My stomach dropped. How long had this been going on? How long had my wife been living a double life while I was here playing dad, playing husband, thinking we were still a family? I felt nauseous, the room spinning a little as the pieces started clicking together. Trent wasn't just some new guy. Ava wasn't just some kid she scooped up somewhere. This was planned. This was her escape hatch, and I was the dead weight she was cutting loose. "Dad," Julian said suddenly, his voice breaking through the fog in my head. I looked at him and he nodded at me. Just once, like he was telling me to hold on. He didn't look at his mom. Didn't even acknowledge Trent or the girl. He just kept his eyes on me, steady and sure. It was enough to pull me back, to keep me from falling apart right there in front of them. I took a deep breath, letting it out slow, and glanced back at Camilla. "I'm not signing anything tonight," I said, my voice stronger now. "You don't get to walk in here and blow everything up without a fight." Her eyes flared, annoyed, like she hadn't expected me to push back. Trent shifted, his smirk fading a little. And Julian, he just sat there, silent, waiting. Whatever was coming next, I knew one thing for. Sure, this wasn't over, not by a long shot. I smiled just a little because, for the first time since she walked in, I felt the ground firm under me. "You may try," I responded, "but it's my name on the deed, not yours." She sneered at me, her flawless plan shattering. I could see the wheels, whirling, revolving in her head, trying to find a way to claw back control. Julian eventually moved beside me, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. He didn't say anything, but his presence was enough. We were in this together, and she didn't see that coming. Her strategy was coming apart, and I wasn't going anywhere. I sat there, the phone still in my hand from showing Camilla the deed, watching her fight to cling to whatever remained of her plan. She had come in here so sure of herself, believing she could bulldoze me out of my own existence with a stack of papers and a smug lover. Now, she was rattled, her eyes darting around like she was looking for an escape hatch that wasn't there. "This doesn't change anything," she stated. But the trembling in her voice revealed a different narrative. She was losing her control, and I could sense it. Trent stood behind her, arms crossed tight, looking like a guy who just learned he'd bet on the wrong horse. Eva grabbed Camilla's thigh, her petite face screwed up, presumably picking up on the tension in the room. Julian kept quiet next to me, his hands resting on his knees, yet I knew he was watching everything, absorbing it all. I had kept my silence for years, allowing her falsehoods to pile up, but now it was my chance to push back. "That's all right," Camilla said, forcing her voice to steady. "We'll go to court. You still owe me alimony for wasting my youth." She flung her hair back, attempting to claw back some of the confidence she had walked in with, wasting her youth. I almost laughed, but it stuck in my throat, turning into a bitter taste. So she believed she could spin this around, make me the bad guy for staying home while she chased her dreams? I laid the phone down on the coffee table, slow and careful, letting her words linger there. "Your youth?" I said, keeping my tone even. "I raised Julian while you were gone. I kept this house together. I paid the bills when your great career didn't cover them. You don't get to call that wasting anything." Her eyes flashed, angry that I wasn't collapsing like she had imagined. "You had it easy," she snapped. sitting here playing house while I worked my ass off. You owe me for that. Simple, I thought. I thought about the evenings Julian sobbed himself to sleep because she didn't call. The times I stretched a paycheck to cover the heat because her vacations ate up the budget. I thought of the years I put my own life on hold so she could climb her ladder, believing it was for us. I didn't say any of that. Not yet. I just looked at her, letting her stew in her own nonsense. She didn't know I had been keeping track, not out of malice, but because I had to. I had saved every receipt, every bank statement, every text where she swore she'd be home soon. I wasn't planning revenge back then. I was just surviving. But now, it was all coming in handy. I reached beneath the couch where I had placed a file folder earlier that week. I had been rummaging through old papers, attempting to make sense of our finances when I found more than I had bargained for. I brought it out now, a basic manila folder, faded at the edges, and set it next to the divorce papers.